We have a new Pope in town, and I'm here to tell you that I believe he is the devil's advocate. I'm going to be using palmistry to explain why and how I think this is and what this means. Good. Hello, my name is Pisces Palmist. This week we are obviously looking at the hands of Pope Leo and what his hand tells us. Who is this man? Is he the man for the job? Does he have any secrets? What's his character like? What have we got to be scared of, if anything at all? Let's find out. Please do subscribe. Connie's just asking you so very kindly in the corner here. And if a cute dog can't do it for you, I've got no chance. So let's begin with Pope Leo's hand shape. What does this tell us? He is a combination of both the practical and the sensual hand type. So this is good and bad. Sensual hand types are very discriminatory. They're very social. They're very good in they're very good in entertainment industries. They understand human condition. And in often, most cases or a lot of cases, they exploit this in order to gain advantages. In particular, um, accomplishing, achieving, desiring worldly desires, materiality, food, sex, chocolate, television, just all the kind of worldly pleasures and forms of escapism. Sensual hands kind of lean towards these and aspire to achieve a life of luxury, really. That's not great, is it, when we're looking at a potential, when we're looking at the Pope, the new Pope? But here's the thing. Notice how his hand, yes, it's kind of rounded. Yes, it's kind of pudgy, it's soft. The basal phalanges of all the fingers are very kind of widened. These are all fairly sensual traits. The hand itself is longer than it is wide. The fingers are short. Again, the fiery element here, creating a sense of passion, enthusiasm, efficiency, a strong ability to adapt socially and understand socially as well. These are all, again, sensual aspects. But the hand itself is quite rigid, it's quite firm, it's quite rectangular, and his psychology is very well balanced. So there's something of a practical approach here that's leavening here, that's negating some of the negative aspects of the sensual hand and um, helping him remind himself what his responsibilities are. This is going to make him work before play. He's going to duty above pleasure. This is also backed up by his where his fingers are set on his palm. Notice how Saturn is higher than Jupiter. Thankfully, he's not overly ambitious or proud. Um, Saturn, when it's higher than all the rest, and this is kind of what we call a Norman arch, which is really balancing out his psychology. He's very well. He's healthy. He's got a very healthy psychological framework, which is exactly what I was hoping to see, and actually I wasn't expecting to see. Um, and it's showing that Saturn is his core values, the traditional values, that duty, morality, ethics, and committing to his community. These are at his core, his principles that are highest on his sort of priority list. This is really a healthy sign. Now, in all the images I've seen, all the fingers lean towards, even Apollo, Jupiter, they all lean in towards Mercury. Now, Mercury, it does lean ever so slightly inwards, which isn't, necessarily a bad thing. He's certainly diplomatic. It's a long finger, so the curvature of it, the negative aspects of the curvature of Mercury are leavened by the length of it. So that's a good sign because there is some preoccupation with sex, but the negative aspects of this are leveled out by his overall awareness. And the fact that he hasn't got an overly kind of low set Mercury finger means that he's not so insecure that he's lacking that inability to understand himself. Emotional expression, awareness, emotional intelligence are heightened because of this somewhat. So he is leveled out in this respect. And he's certainly highly diplomatic. He's highly persuasive as well. Notice how the tip of this finger is very kind of well developed. as are all of the tips. And this is always seen in the hands of people who are searching for powerful meaning, for the powerful context and understanding around them. They're searching for knowledge. And it's always seen in the hands of people who are highly spiritual, highly religious. And that is what we are seeing here. He is a highly skilled diplomat. His strength of communication is remarkable. He recognizes this about himself as well, that his powers of communication, expressive abilities are his strongest trait, his strongest strength that he is playing to. And that's what all of the things leaning in towards this are providing us with. He's someone that, at a dinner party, people kind of overhear his conversations and they start listening. And before you know it, that everyone's listening in. And this is partly how he's gotten where he is. He's really understood and played to this strength. Notice how all of the middle phalanges are kind of pinched in. And this is, I think, a sign here that he was probably lacking maternal affection when he was growing up somewhat, but it also shows us, actually, yeah, aligns with this, some feelings of kind of neglect when he was young. He's had to kind of make it on his own. And his hand in what we see in the chirology here does represent that he has some negative feelings towards his upbringing and he kind of broke away from this and carved his own independence in many respects. The great changes that have occurred in his life are to his own determination, his own drive, motivation, and even anger at times. So, what we've seen so far is actually pretty healthy. What about his heart line? What can we see from his ability to love, his compassion? Well, he is a compassionate person. His heart line begins relatively low and it curves very healthily. And it does, in fact, reach up in between Jupiter and Saturn. And this shows a strong and healthy understanding of right and wrong. The curvature, the healthy curvature shows an ability to, strong, compassionate ability to love and be loved. He is healthy in terms of his emotionality, his emotional awareness. He's a relatively sensitive individual, sensitive towards the needs of others. He's got a strong sense of understanding when it comes to emotions. I wouldn't say he's idealist. I wouldn't say he's charitable. I wouldn't say he's a philanthropist. He's not someone that's going to go out of his way and really try to make life better in unrealistic expectations, or he doesn't have these in others as well. I think he understands people very well. So there is kind of an equal sort of balance here of what he wants for himself and what he wants for others, and he does want for himself, but not unhealthily. He's not selfish. He's not the most generous person either, but he is generous when he needs to be. I think he's one of these sorts of people who's generally he's a nice guy, and he appears this way. He is a nice guy, but if you cross him, if you give him reason to, if you break any one of his rules, he will come down on you brutally, and he'll make an example of you. Now, his headline I thought was quite interesting because when we look at this and where it comes from, it starts pretty high up on the palm, uh, you know, very high up on Jupiter, and this is showing someone who is highly ambitious, and it's also a sign of a leader as well. This is someone who people enjoy, people feel safe in following. He's a leader by example. His headline also, it's pretty straight up until a point, up until around about the age of 35. There's this kind of a real change in his perspective, and he becomes a lot more flexible. He becomes a bit more easygoing and a bit more understanding. There's he brings his walls down. He becomes a bit more vulnerable, becomes a bit more sensitive, compassionate. There's something about him that changes here. And he becomes very kind of creative at this time. And I think that it was at this time where he began a new venture, new expressive, communicative adventure. I will just say, at this point, I know nothing about this chap other than that he is 69 and his name. That's literally it. And that he's the new pope. Honestly, genuinely now, I know nothing more than that at this time. I wanted to know his age so that I could provide context to what we see in his hands at this time in his life and maybe in future, but that was it. But what I can say is at the age of 35, a lot changes for him. There's several periods of change, both internally and externally, as we can see in his hands, which I'm going to point out shortly. But his headline changes fairly dramatically. And if we look at the sun line that develops at around about the age of 34, because where the fate line meets the headline is the age of 35. There's a secondary fate line that develops at this time as well. Again, a massive sign of change here. Purpose, fulfillment, satisfaction out of the efforts that he's putting in his newfound effort, which is, I believe, in a newfound form of expression, communication. He develops a new creative project at this time, and it opens his way of thinking up, opens his ability development in terms of how he expresses himself, and it makes him more um, it makes him more vulnerable, I suppose. It opens up a new aspect about himself, makes him more imaginative, creative, and he kind of feeds an aspect of himself that he's been neglecting for a good half of his life. And what I find massively interesting is this right here, this forking headline right here. And from this fork, this sun line develops. And also, this fate line appears to develop as well. And what we're seeing here is this ability to see things from more than one perspective. His his perspective changes, it develops, it shifts, and what we're seeing is this. Um, it's an ability to see things from more than one angle at the same time. He becomes essentially the devil's advocate. You know, in conversation, I tricked you, didn't I? He's able to kind of say, okay, okay, but hang on, but what about this? You know, and not necessarily that he believes that or he wants to think that's true or agrees. He's just sort of able to say and see from both perspectives at the same time. And it's always seen in the hands of actors, writers, and psychologists. And it makes Pope Leo actually a tremendous counselor. He's probably an excellent counselor. And that probably lent well to his position in life as well. And that ability to see things from other people's perspectives is exactly what a counselor, an actor, a writer needs when we are becoming roles, when we're needing to step inside the shoes of another. And it's from this that a sun line grows. So it's from this kind of counseling or writing ability that this success grows, it flourishes. And it's, for me, being that all fingers lean towards Mercury, being that he is very sensitive and understanding, that his powers of communication are incredibly strong, that he's developed imaginative, expressive abilities, almost in a kind of explosive way. For me, it's showing from the age of 35 and onwards, he was able to provide influence, to spread his message, to spread his word, and to brand himself, to say, this is who I am, this is what I do, and he was able to really carve a career, make a name for himself, and probably make some money as well from this kind of newfound avenue, this project, this interest, this venture. So that's what I'm really seeing here. So that's what I mean by he is the devil's advocate. And sorry if I tricked you, but you're still here for the right reasons. Keep watching. Comes to something when I literally have to persuade my audience to stay with me. It's not a good thing, is it? From 35 right up to the age that he is right now in his life, this is really interesting for me. His sun line, his success, his material, practical, environmental implications of his own success in life are one powerful coursing path. Now, when we see a sun line this far over on the palm, developing in this area of outer Mars, as this just is, it shows a dogged determination. It shows someone who is actually kind of a bit of a bull in a china shop when it comes to achieving their goals. It's not necessarily a good sign. It's seen in the hands of Rupert Murdoch. You know, it's someone who is kind of brutal in terms of just how they achieve in getting their success. But is always positive when it's seen on the hands of people who are writers in literary industries, in entertainment industries. This is a really positive thing. It's showing inevitable success, but through hard work and likely through this doubling of his ability to perceive his perspective. What I find interesting is that this sun line kind of stops at the age in his life, which he is right now, 69. This is around about the age of 69 right here, and it stops and it shifts over, and it's showing a complete shift in his material, practical success, and it's not as strong as well. So what this is showing is his new role, whilst he might be a good fit for it. So far, I think he is. It's not necessarily a good fit for him because he's not getting as much satisfaction. It's not making him as happy as he was before. The same thing can be said by looking at his fate line when we read this alongside this as well. Look at his fate lines from 35 right up to 53. Really positive, and even beyond this, really hardworking. He's gaining a lot from the work he's doing. He's feeling very satisfied about his purpose. He's very sure about his purpose, and his purpose is it's kind of a dual purpose. There's more to it than just, paying the bills. He feels very, very strongly about what he's doing. And he's not a great expression, but he's killing two birds with one stone in the way that he is impacting and having an effect on the lives of many others. So right up until about the age of 56, he's doing some great work here, but something happens. And everything just sort of seems to drop off. And yes, we can see some curvature towards um, freedom here, towards expression. It's an odd one. It's an odd one because of what we see down here. Look at this, a gigantic square on the Venus Mount itself, and we see the lifeline as well, and it appears to kind of just stop. And the fate line here, which also could be interpreted as the lifeline, kind of overlaps. What's going on here? Well, this is what's going on. I'll tell you what's going on. The lifeline, we're going to get into his life now. We're going to talk about his life, lead right up to his current events, and I'll provide my interpretation on what this square means and what's all going on right here. Now, his lifeline is tightly joined to his headline for quite a long period of time, and this is the mark of the tortoise. This is someone who is kind of plodding along at their own pace. They're doing things in their own way. They're kind of slow, they're hesitant, they're shy, they're cautious, overly cautious. He's certainly going to have missed out on certain opportunities in life because he's just kind of very sort of blinkered in his ways. And the thing is, what I've noticed about his hands is that at 14, he had this kind of epiphany, this idea about what he should be doing with his life. And it was from this that he kind of created his own promise to himself. And being a practical hand, practical hands do this. When they see injustice, they create a new rule, a new promise to themselves. They say to themselves, okay, if ever I see this again, this is what I'm going to do. And they stick to that rule. They are firm but fair. And like I say, if he sees injustice, he's going to come down on those committing injustice brutally. He'll make examples of them. And he'll utilize his influence to do that. And so at the age of 14, he realized, okay, I need to have a certain amount of influence if I'm going to um, if I'm going to put these rules and regulations into place, if I'm going to enforce what I feel should be those laws, essentially. He felt very strongly about himself and kind of rose in some sort of sense or another. He created an ambition in himself at the age of 14. Something happened here that was quite profound for him in his life. Now, at the age of 18, again, there was another ambition here, but this was more about achievement. This was a great sense of inner achievement, and it comes from a time of anger, of motivation and determination and drive. And there's another one again that which occurs about the age of 22 or so. And this is arguably the most profound moment in his life, the most eventful, the biggest, strongest feeling of anger that he probably ever had. And he broke away from the environment that he lived in at that time. He said, no, I'm not going to do things like this anymore. This is my own way. Like I say, he's the mark of the tortoise. He'll do things in his own way. He will be able to get over any terrain that's in front of him, but it'll just be slow. Whereas, other people will look at certain kind of obstacles and go, no, I'm not doing that, or they'll go around it. Pope Leo will go over it, but he'll do it at his own pace. And he decided to carve his own independence at the age of 22. And you can see here a direct correlation with his success as well. This decision that he made at 22-ish or thereabout, maybe 23, was had a direct impact on his future. It changed the course of his life forever, and he made this decision. And where we see the Lifeline break away from the headline at this time, where he claims his independence, look at the course of it. Look at it aligning with the thoughts and feelings, the ambition created at 18 through perseverance. He realized that in order for him to make a name for himself, it's only him that's going to make it happen. He realized that he is going to have to get his hands dirty, that he's going to have to create and carve his own destiny. And that's what he's done. Look at the course of this Lifeline. Look at just how straight it is. It's always seen in the hands of people who are very ambitious, who are, it's a sign of leadership. It's a sign of someone who is plotting a course for um, a determined um, path and purpose in life. It's coursing towards lunar. At least that's the direction that it's kind of heading, which shows travel as well. It shows someone who's not afraid to explore. And what we see here by this, what we're actually seeing here is, in fact, a fate line and a lifeline in one. It is both. If you're confused as to what is exactly happening here, we're seeing a lifeline that is becoming fate line, sorry, that is becoming a lifeline. The overlap here shows a tremendous change to his life at the age of 35, which correlates to what we've already seen with his sun line, his forking headline, the fate line that develops from this as well. Again, there was great change in his life and experience, a change in his environment, his surroundings, broadened his horizons, broadened his perspectives, and his ability to see things from more than one perspective. He was able to then say, okay, I see life from your eyes now. And it provided him with this ability, with the right kind of characteristics as well, the right aptitude towards counseling, towards um, having those perspectives, those dual perspectives of being able to um, see things through another lens. He was able to then write, develop his powers of communication and expression, and this really changed everything. This was a powerful moment of external as well as internal change for Pope Leo. So what we're actually seeing here is this fate line becomes the lifeline, and it shifts away from the Venus mount. It increases that Venus mount, and it makes that Venus mount essentially what we're seeing from 35 and onwards is an increased Venus mount from this area onwards. That's kind of what we're seeing here. And what it means is his environment, he has expanded his known world, his domestic sphere has increased, the amount of people in his known world and the experiences in which he has have increased. He essentially broadens his horizons tremendously. So what's happening here is he kind of living this dual kind of life from this time and onwards. There's his current kind of inner path, purpose, which he feels very strongly about, and then there's the secondary path, which he's living in a very unfamiliar environment, and this also corroborates what we're seeing with the duality of purpose, with his dual fate lines as well. Now, where the fate lines kind of dissipate, 56, they cross the uh, heart line just about, but then they kind of stop. We're seeing a similar thing happen here with the lifeline as well, because at around about the age of 50 or so, maybe a little bit past that, maybe 53, we see something of a square. And it's fairly clear, this square on his Venus mount. And it's attaching itself to this fate line, which is also the lifeline. So what we're seeing here is a clear indication of isolation from society. That's probably the most accurate way to put it. A little bit vague. Most of the time it's imprisonment, hospitalization, but the correct way to put it is he's isolated himself, or um, his position in life is isolating him, his circumstances, his situational, um, experiences, environment. It's kind of locking him away. It's boxing him off. It's safeguarding the way in which he lives his life. But he's very kind of closed off from everything else. And notice how the fate line slash lifeline kind of carves back in again as well. So what we're seeing is, he's had this experience of the outside. He's been very well traveled. He's very well traveled, and then he's kind of shifted back again. He's reverted back again. He's gone from being a pilgrim, an explorer, to being a hermit. And it's this kind of he's indulged in expanding on himself. He's worked on himself. He's ignored um or almost what was set out for him. He's worked on himself. He's developed on and considered himself, and that now he's kind of come back to being a hermit again at this point in his life, 53 perhaps onwards. And he's kind of just said, no, I'm going to close myself off. I'm going to devote myself to God's work. Essentially, that's what I'm seeing here. I'm seeing a kind of a mark of a hermit here with everything else. And really, it was through this um, and his immense powers of this influential kind of ability through expression, through communication, likely writing, his message, his developed ability to spread his message, his truth, that he was able to, in isolation, make a name for himself, really explore branding himself, and kind of think carve a career for himself from isolation. It's a really strange one. So everything that I'm seeing here, I'm actually seeing someone who is actually pretty well suited for the role, and I'm seeing someone who didn't want this role. He was quite happy being the hermit that he was. He'd explored everything that he felt he wished to and wanted to in life, and he came back only after truly sort of meeting his heart's desire. Only when it was right for him that he felt happy enough to kind of come back to um, serving, his God in his way, um, isolating himself, shutting himself off away from that world again. And he was kind of chosen. It was never his intention, and that bodes well because power corrupts, and we should never really desire roles of power. We should never really seek them out. If we do, then we're not necessarily right for them. Power, as we know, corrupts. And I see in Pope Leo's hands certainly someone who is able to become corrupted by power, but also leavened somewhat by his own practical, firm but fair, strong understanding of right and wrong. His own power of belief will prevent him from corrupting. At least that is my hope. So the question isn't really, is he right to be the Pope? Is being the Pope right for him? I feel that he is, for all intents and purposes, actually probably a fairly good candidate for being the Pope. But I don't think that being Pope is necessarily right for him. His path in life is quite clear. He's happy. He's gaining a lot of satisfaction up until a certain point, and then he kind of loses that, um, and he throws himself into isolation. But what's to become of him after this time? Well, if we look at the fate line after this time, it's a patch, isn't it? It's a patch of energy. It's messy. It's not clear. It's just a dark kind of patch. And what we're seeing here is overexertion. It's a tremendous amount of energy. He's going to work too hard at his role. His role is going to require a tremendous amount of work from him. He's not going to enjoy it. He's not going to gain satisfaction from it because he's not going to feel like he's going to be able to do his job effectively. He's going to see um, a lot of what he doesn't want to see, and that's probably why he became something of a hermit. He's now thrown back into the limelight again. He's now it's unavoidable for him. He had choice to carve his own destiny. He doesn't have that anymore. He can't do things in that way that you know, he did before. He's bound to the rules, but he gets to change some of them now, and that's in some way a positive thing. So I do think that he will be a fairly good pope, but I don't think that being the pope is good for him. Thank you all so much for watching. Please do subscribe. Please do like this video. Let me know what your thoughts are as well, and who you'd like me to read the hands of next Sunday. Thank you all so much for watching, and I shall see you on the next one. Bye bye. Also, I will just say, if you would like your own palm reading, please do visit my website and book. I provide written, uh, pre-recorded video readings and live readings as well. It's all completely confidential. And if you're not happy with your reading, you are welcome to your money back. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.